tree bank, 50 trees that we can plant along the boulevard.
If the commission wants to recommend they do less trees than the staff report recommends, you can certainly do that.
Again, that's maybe a better question for the council. I just wanted to bring it up because I'm trying to figure out, what if they can't get all those trees, but on their site.
Chairman, may I ask a question related to trees on the boulevard?
Absolutely.
I noticed that in the staff section, it did say that you had worked significantly with St. Therese and that this had to be closer on this section F, this one that runs right along the boulevard, just because of the unique design that they had. They wanted to draw people in. And I guess I'm just asking, in the pictures, it does show balconies on that side, and I meant to note it earlier, but are you really going to be able, that would be the place where it'd be beautiful to see some of those overstory trees that grow 40 to 70 feet tall, because those are the highest buildings. But is that going to be possible to get the breadth of growth with some of the balconies with as close as it is? That was just, I don't know if you want to answer it or if it's just to be noted, but question.
Happy to answer that. That was actually a concern of ours as well. There is we learned that there was a 15-foot maximum setback for the building. So we actually had to move the building closer to the street for recommendation from landform, Kendra. So yeah, it's a concern of ours, but we were meeting the requirement in order to do so.
And can I ask a follow-up question? I'm really sorry.
No.
Is that because, I know that that's a requirement that's in the Southeast district design. Is that for the, more of the commercial type business that maximum was set in rather than residential?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Berman, no, that is a maximum setback that applies for anything that would be developed.
Anything, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so I wanted to comment on the safety memo, the wonderful illustrations on page 3 and 4, the fine level of detail. I'm surprised, though, that they didn't come colored fire truck red. I looked at it, I first didn't know what I was looking at.
Had a lot of fun internally with those images.
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
Not City of Corcoran created images, I will say that. No Corcoran staff participated in the creation of these images.
Okay, all right, so does anybody have any other follow-up questions or discussion? Now, it was suggested throughout the staff report that we discuss 4 different items: street edge, architecture, signage, and landscape. Is everybody fine with where we're at on those issues? I mean, now that you brought it up, though, that street edge thing, a minimum build to line at 15 feet, it's hard to put any kind of tree in there.
And to get any shade for those top-story residents who are getting the morning sun all day.
I mean, I guess I don't understand maybe some of the logic there, if you can't hardly put a tree in there without it hitting the building at some point in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so as far as the design for the Parkway, it would be a tree-lined median as well as tree-lined between the street and the sidewalk. So really, there's 2 opportunities for trees from the public infrastructure, so it'd be public tree infrastructure versus private, essentially.
Okay. And then assuming all that pruning, all that trimming then is maintained by the city?
Correct.
And I'm assuming this is very premature, that the type of trees that will be planted in the median, whether they're overstory or, in terms of its height, right?
Yeah, and Chair and Commission members, that's something that more significant planning is going to have to take place. Really, this plan is It's well and detailed until you're about ready to construct it, and you find out how many other details are next level to do. So I think that's certainly a discussion that's gonna have to be had.
Okay, so regarding signage, so then as I see it, if St. Therese wishes to put signage on their property at one of the entrances, there's only 3 points that they could do that, correct?
Mr. Chair, I believe that that would be correct. The primary, based on the site plan, the primary entrances are going to be in that southeast corner. And then I think the other idea is that other access point to the west, going up to that main parking lot shown about halfway up. And then I suppose theoretically, they could put a sign facing City Center Drive.
For our discussion, this will be more of a service entry, I believe.
Yeah.
So their main entrance would really be this
Yeah,
down here.
those two areas.
We, the city, has required them to connect this corner, otherwise they would not have even connected this area. So it's really meant to be more service-oriented
Yeah.
for the building.
Well, so on page 3 of the first resolution, item F, and this may be totally irrelevant as far as discussion of signage, but it says mechanical equipment must be fully screened from view in a way that is integral to the architecture of the building. This equipment may not be located in the front yard. The plans must be revised to show compliance. So what are we considering to be the front yard then? I mean, they basically have, well, they don't have frontage right off of 116, so it can't be anything on the west side.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. So basically, we would define the front yard as the area adjacent to 79th Place and City Center Drive. So really, most of it is front yard. I believe from discussions with the applicant, they've talked about rooftop mechanical equipment. And so we're just asking for a screening plan for that, where I don't think there is concern about it really being placed in a front yard at this point.
Did you get an explanation for what the white things were on the elevation of?
That was just a drafting hair. That was actually a jacuzzi tub.
Hey, kind of an odd place to put it, but, you know, I could see it. All right. Okay, any other planning discussion, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, if I answer the questions for both Dan and
By all means.
Henry as well?
By all means, Brad, please do.
So, we talked about main entrance locations, so as we've talked about here, there's the 79th Place, which is basically across from your house there.
Right.
And then really the south entrance of City Hall would be the main entrance to the downtown. So eventually that would have a stoplight at the south entrance of City Hall, at that location. At 79th Place across from your house, it would be a full intersection, but not a stop sign or a stoplight. But our whole goal is to design this area to slow down. The city worked with Hennepin County for many, many years to really make sure this area is able to be able to slow down to not a 50-mile-per-hour zone in the future. And that's actually why it's no longer a state aid highway, because you need to maintain speeds for that to happen. So it's a different level of road that we intend to pump as much down as possible for speed. But those would be the main locations there.
Well, will that other drive to the east go all the way down to 10? Is that the idea?
So this image here, so this is we're talking about the south entrance of City Hall currently. And then this Parkway, correct, would go all the way down to County Road 10 to another main entrance to downtown. So 79th Place would be right here, and I think you're right there. And then eventually, I think we have a plan right in, right out down here as well in the future.
So will they add turn lanes on 116?
Correct. And we'd have to design what that would look like in the interim conditions, because we envision the house for you and Dan being there for as long as possible. So we'd have to make sure we design interim conditions of what that looks, so there's space, whether it's, so that'd be part of the design. And then, I don't know if it's okay to ask Kelvin, could you talk through Dan's conversation on garbage pickup and when that would take place? Because or Barb?
I am Barb Rhodey. I'm the CEO of St. Therese, and usually on our campuses, we have them picked up.
Two different locations, but.
Yeah. We usually have 2 different locations for trash, but they pick them up twice a day, and certainly any vendor that we have come in would adhere to any of the ordinances as far as noise and sound and things like that. And I have to tell you that our residents make very good neighbors. I mean, you couldn't ask for better neighbors than people there, so they don't make noise. A lot of them are in bed by 8, 9 o'clock, like myself, but they're great neighbors, so. And I have to say, the city has worked so well with us. You know, we're willing to do whatever they recommend for us, because we would follow any ordinance unless there's some approval to change something. So I think we've done really great together to get those. You have a lot of great people in the city. So I just wanted to add that, because I never get to tell that. The city's that. Do you have any other questions? And the lights, we will make sure that they're dimmed down. I mean, they're focused down. We've done that on all of our campuses. That doesn't shine onto the neighbors or anything like that. Okay?
And Mr. Chairman, I will add, actually, the council just approved new standards for garbage collection that are between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So we actually will have those teeth starting next year for holidays. Correct?
Yeah, so we will follow that with any vendor. Anything else?
I don't think so.
I just also would like to add, speaking about noise, the city council did approve a ordinance amendment last week that'll take effect January 1st for construction activity. So that will be further limited, 8 to 4 on the weekends and 7 to 7 during the week. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit more of a reprieve than what you're getting right now.
Sure. Since you asked, I should have mentioned in the public hearing, but Jim Chamberlain, I'm on 20969 County Road 50. And I just thought it was pretty interesting in the preamble, Natalie mentioned that this building and this facility matches the current proposed vision for downtown. And I thought that was interesting, and I don't really have an opinion on that, but I just thought, can someone elaborate on what that vision is and what, I don't know, in 20 years that you expect downtown Corcoran to look like?
Brad, by all
I mean,
means, I think I know what the answer. I mean, we have a section in our ordinance that's got all the information that we've planned, but of course, they're just guidelines and they're just plans. That map is always subject to change depending upon, future development, timing and market trends and whatnot. So there is a vision out there, but boy, I tell you, it's anybody's guess maybe right now as to when that might happen.
I think the reason why we kind of drew it this way is because we keep trying to make sure that people don't feel like they're coming to a nursing home, because that is the worst thing for anybody to say, I don't want to go to a nursing home. It's uncomfortable. They don't want to be kind of segmented that they're old or older. And so we are trying to make sure that we do the best we can in just there's another generation, but this is a little bit more modern style or something to that effect. And when they talked about urban, that's when all of these ideas came through. And I'm just going to tell you that the storefronts, there's going to be one for residents to sell their crafts. And so people from the community can come in and buy or look at their crafts that they sell, which so many are absolutely talented. We have authors, we have real painters and things like that. The other one may be an ice cream store, if we can partner with the store in town, you know, when we have the amphitheater going, everybody can come get an ice cream cone. So it's stuff like that that we really want to highlight on our campus. So it draws in the residents to like run the store, things like that. So it's better for the residents, definitely to have a purpose and to show their talents that they have. So.
Thank you.
May I address his question? So being a newer resident to the area, it's really, really long, but if you go to the code, the city code, and you start at about 540, page 540, they have developed in there, which my understanding is it started in 2015 was kind of when it was being developed under the guidance of some input from the Met Council as the MUSA line begins to extend this way. So anyway, there's a plan in there that kind of talks about a vision for that area. To his chairman's point, who knows if it will, things can flex and change. I think it's interesting, how much wiggle room that vision gives, but that's where it was helpful for me to at least start there and to begin to understand this. So that's where I would say if you have the time and the access, and if you don't, I'd be happy to give you my copy for a while.
Okay, any other further discussions, comments? All right, so then as we look at the resolutions that we must take our pulse on as a recommendation to the city council, is there any changes that anybody can think of that we need to or wish to make? And I'll just bring it up since I brought it up before. We'll talk at page 3 of the resolution, item 8K2. Do we want to change anything regarding the minimum of the overstory trees, or do we want to just leave it as is?
To clarify, right now, it just says, as is, they need to up the number of trees and shrubs. And some of the ideas that you had proposed were possibly giving them an opportunity to utilize some of those trees to be future trees that the city puts in the boulevard.
You know, think it outside the box.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a landscape architect, but, you know, I think there's maybe some creative things we can do if we want the 259 trees, but maybe they don't fit on the site. I'm just, again, throwing it out there. If our recommendation, if we don't change this, then the city council, they have, of course, the authority to do whatever they wish to it, as it is or as we recommend. But if we don't feel that strongly that, you know, hey, it's 259 trees or nothing, or you can make it the equivalent by substituting with understory trees, then that's, if the council agrees to that, then it'll be up to staff and the applicant to determine that mix at some point in the future.
Well, I'd like to jump on the idea of a couple of more mature trees, particularly because of the height of the project. And so I would like to suggest that maybe I'd be willing to give some credit for more than one tree if it's not just a, beginner tree
Okay.
in
Now-
some well-placed locations.
Yeah. Now, the code is very specific about landscape requirements, tree sizes. I know that there was a comment in the staff report that out of the number of trees that the city would like to see, I think there's 5 or 7. The applicant has chosen to delineate on their plan only 2. The staff would like to see a greater variety. So our city councilors are here, so they heard that. I would like to agree with you on that, and maybe that's something we could codify later, to say, well, we're willing to codify, if you put in bigger trees, you get credit for some other number. But at this point, it's just going to have to be, hey, we'd sure like to see that. And if they can come up to agree to something to that, that's up to them. Yep, so. I like it, though. All right. Well, on page 2 then, under 8, we talked about the curb, the street edge. Is there anything that, are we comfortable with as it's written? I mean, we didn't really talk a whole lot about it, whether fences, low-rise concrete, trees, bushes. Again, they don't have a lot of detail here, so
Yeah.
I think if we just leave it as is and let the staff and the applicant work on it, they'll come up with something that'll,
Yeah, I don't have any strong feeling personally that it can't work, but I don't have a design in front of me to, I'm
I mean, if I made one comment at all, I understand this street edge concept, but I think that maybe there ought to be, and we could certainly always suggest it, but maybe there ought to be a little bit more flexibility based on the particular lot or the particular building type, that maybe we can give them, we allow people to encroach upon setbacks all the time. If they want more room or need more room to set it back, we can certainly allow that, but, okay. All right.
Is there any mention of the primary building, the proposed mix of building materials in the resolution? Did I miss that?
I believe it is, I just need to locate it.
Let's see it.
Okay, so it's 8C2, and it's actually on the top of page 37. So primary and secondary building material percentages as required by the Southeast District Plan.
Okay. So then the only other thing, and I don't know whether it needs to be written in here, is whether they would, is just an idea to consider of adhering to those percentages on the primary, on the public building faces, and perhaps some leniency on the interior building faces of the site. And that, I come across that quite a bit, actually, because it's a way to, it's something that, it's exercised a lot.
I would see, I think the one problem that we might have here,
Is what's public and what's private.
well, no, it's just that if the front is 79th Avenue, there's not nearly as much siding or as close to the road as what we would now consider the backyard, which is along City Center Drive.
Well, I'm saying any public street, so I'm saying 79th and City Center Drive.
Well, that covers 3/4 of the building.
That's right, because otherwise they have to do 100% of it. So this is a break. And you know what? It's up to city council. This is a suggestion. It's something that I've seen done. And you know, maybe there are other, you don't think that's enough of a break, enough of a compromise?
Okay, so are you suggesting a change to the resolution?
No, I'm not actually. I think the resolution should be written as it's written. I just offered that as something to consider. I don't want to change the text.
Okay.
The staff, we've heard you loud and clear, so we
Yeah,
can have follow-up
that's fine. You've got it.
conversations. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have two resolutions. We can, if there's no changes to either one, we'll just take one vote to approve them both at the same time. So we have recommending approval of a preliminary plat for the Town Center addition. And we have a resolution recommending approval of a site plan and conditional use permit for the property at 8200 County Road 116. Would anybody like to make a motion to recommend approval? Commissioner Drummond
Yeah,
or Brummond?
go for it.
Sure. I'll make a motion.
Yeah, got your teeth sometime, right? All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor of recommending approval of the preliminary plat and the site plan and conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is so recommended approved. Thanks, everybody, for all your work and help, and we look forward to your development. I have an elderly aunt.
Pardon?
Might be a good resident. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay, are we good to go, or does anybody need a break?
You know, the pregnant lady needs a break.
Okay. It is 9:27, how about 9:35? Is that, would that be sufficient?
Thank
Okay, we'll stand in recess till 9:35.
Oh, dear.
Meredith, do you want to mention anything at the end of the meeting?
Do I? I can. He knows.
That's up to you.
Don't you know
What?
that I'm resigned?
Oh, I did not know that,
I
I
had a
didn't
chance to
know that.
catch you before, so Meredith put in a resignation notice this week.
Why? Because there's how many other people who want to be planning commissioners? It's great. I've had a chance, and it's time for someone else to have a chance. Look, we got Mark.
Well, we're
Three?
certainly gonna miss you, I mean,
Yeah, but I've been doing it a while. I gotta do some other stuff too.
yeah,
So no, I will miss it, but I can always come back.
okay.
But yeah, so you know, we had so many applicants. I thought now was a good time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to do, but golf with my father.
Boy, I wish I had nothing
Mow
else
my
to
lawn
do. Yeah.
until
you start the
my
ponies?
wife fully retires. and
Do you
we-
start with ponies? Or do you start the horses, or did you?
You're right.
Yeah, we're
So
trying to
they're
rehome them.
defined in the packets, but we gotta do a
You wanna
better
be done
job
with
of
them?
describing them
Well,
in the,
it's- yeah,
moment
I
we
mean,
describe
we-
them. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
There's the, ordinary high
You know,
water level.
you don't want to
there
be
was
done
the
with them, but,
EOF, the emergency
you know,
overflow.
they're-
Yeah, there was a lot
let's
of
just
them. I
say
appreciate
one
the
is,
feedback on them.
should
You're
be
right.
fully retired,
You're absolutely
you
right.
know, and the other one is, but they're both still good trail horses and stuff, but,
Yeah.
the feeding requirements getting a little intense.
I have two arthritic mares. I can ride one, provided I give her inject her joints, pretty much.
Yeah.
The other girl, I can't ride her. I mean, I can sit on her, but she's I mean, her joints click when she walks, she's had it.
Jeremy, I got your
But she's
text,
in
I
actually
just didn't
good
have a good answer
health.
for you yet.
And my husband says, they're gonna live for another
It's on my
20 years the way
notes.
they're
I
going.
just didn't know
Exactly,
how to
and,
respond exactly.
and so it's a tough
Ain't the
decision, but
answers.
like, a lot of it was just,
Just what,
you know, if
we'll allow
we,
without doing anything
if
extra.
we're
that I need
looking to
confirm.
actively, you know, put our house on the market, we
That's
find
fair.
someplace up north, you know.
I know.
I don't wanna have to then all of a sudden go, all right, now I gotta get rid of the horses.
I know.
Because I gotta close in 30 days.
I know, you can't. As soon as our girls, as soon as our mares,
Interesting.
I kinda actually thought that my,
Meteor shower or anything? That's
my wife's
weird.
family, my
Is it your
first
house?
wife's
Yeah.
family would
I was like in the
take
middle
it.
of
They
this,
got
was like,
several
when I
farms
watched, I got the
down,
notification.
you know, Fairmont Blue
I was like,
Earth.
is there a fire?
but they don't.
And they, no, they have
That's
lots of
weird.
horses and stuff. And
It looks to
you
me
know,
like
now
one of
they-
those like Halloween.
now they got-
hologram
got
type
first
things,
too,
you know,
but
it's
I mean-
your house. And it'd be coming
And I
from the
thought,
houses
you know,
under
they've
construction.
got
And
spaces
they,
and, you know,
4 days after Halloween.
I kind of assumed that that would be something that was a
Maybe,
no-brainer.
I don't know, like
One of
some
them
weird
came from,
green,
you know.
I'll have to
and-
show it to you later, it's really
No,
hard
I
to
was
describe.
wrong.
Weirdest
Yeah.
thing, like.
I mean, nobody was jumping at the bit, you know,
And
except for maybe our oldest
John said
one,
he-
which is our best trail
Son's
horse.
a track, right?
You know, for the little
Really good
kids.
strength.
Yeah, they're good
But,
horses.
you know, and they've always said, oh, yeah, we'd love to have some.
That
Well,
is John
now
Mara,
it's
that's
like,
amazing.
okay, you want
That is
some?
amazing. That and the one that was in the,
I mean, we had a place
That
that
need- that's like
was willing
meme
to,
with like little girls.
you know, they were
smiling
very
over the fire.
serious
That
about
needs to be the new
taking
version.
them, and
Yep,
we went up
bringing
with
the Diet
the
Coke
facility.
in front of the building, burning building.
You know, they got 45, 50 horses.
It's hard on old
Ponies,
horses.
and it was just like, we don't have herd horses, and I can see where, you know how they work, you don't get to eat.
Yeah, older horses don't do well because
Yeah.
they don't, they
And
get
I
pushed
just went,
around.
no, it's gotta go to somebody who has a couple maybe, but not 50.
Yeah, they won't get the care. It's, as soon as our 2 girls go, I'm moving back to Australia. As soon as they go, as soon as the girls pass on,
Oh, you're fine.
I'm selling and leaving.
I can press arrows.
I've got to get home.
Yeah.
But I can't, I can't bring
Are you
this.
Australian?
Good job.
Yeah, I'll move back to Australia when they go to school.
I didn't know you were from Australia.
There were several questions.
So as soon as the mares go to the pasture in the sky, I will be moving. I mean, I love it here, but I gotta get home.
Yeah, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Well, you know, I attended that planning commission meeting, I was there. I attended a planning commission meeting by Zoom, but I was there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was visiting. So,
I thought you were just visiting.
no, I was with my sister. I mean, I was just visiting, but yeah. But, yeah, I know it's hard with the older horses.
Apparently it's a
Yeah.
meteor
And I
shower.
love the mares, but it's just,
Almost
they need a lot
all
of care now.
It could be that bright at your house.
And there's no way they
Landed in
would herd. One
Yeah.
would get beaten up and the other one should never
It's a
get.
weird coincidence.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna do that to them.
Nope. Well, you know.
Remember I was walking my dog
We own the horse operation, you know, when we get the
5:30 in the
horses,
morning,
it's like,
and the biggest
you
green
know,
flash of
we-
light.
when we sell them, we'll split the horse trail. I'll keep them for the benefit of our kids.
I know exactly what it looks
So
like.
she comes out and
It was
runs,
quick.
but she pays for
Yeah.
food and
Okay,
gas and
she's-
stuff, so
yeah.
she, you know. And she's like, yeah, I'll give it to them. We're gonna donate the horses, we're not even asking money for them. We're gonna donate them. And she was all over it. And I was like, no. And so we had that difference. Yeah, I'm not gonna put horses into that. So.
It's tough.
Yep. Well, we'll sure miss you.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss it, but I think it's.
You can watch us on Zoom, you know.
I know that.
You just raise your hand and you can talk anytime. You
That's
just
true.
listen here, chair, idiot.
I remember when.
What are you thinking?
No, I think it's a good time. I think there's people that are interested, and that's great, because we never, I mean, there were years when we needed people, we couldn't find anyone, right?
You know what we're all missing? We're all missing the monthly happy hour.
Well, we need,
That
we need Jeff
group
Dickman to come
building
back.
activity.
We need Jeff Dickman to come back.
They're not giving the city any plans for how they're gonna deal with their screening problem.
Kinda.
We'll hear about it next week.
Tomorrow. Heck, it's nearly ready.
That's fair. Thank you.
Yeah, kinda.
Okay. Can you turn us on?
We are on.
All right, we will call this planning commission meeting back to order. And our next item on the agenda is item 7C, public hearing, zoning amendment for non-conformities. And I must admit, after reading this whole report and stuff, I think I was saying non-conformities in my sleep at night. It was kind of scary, but anyway, we will entertain the staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a 2021 priority identified by staff was to update the nonconformity section of our city code, as it has not been updated for several years, and the Minnesota state statute has been updated. So this is to bring the city code into compliance with state statute, as well as provide some clarity in areas where we have found to be lacking. So the prevailing Minnesota statute provides protections for nonconformities and was revised in 2004, 2005, and 2009. We have not revised our city code since March of 2004. So the definition of nonconforming lot was under debate earlier this year at a council meeting, and staff was directed to clearly define this term within city code. So this is addressing both of these concerns. The section, the first section that we would be changing basically includes adding or slightly tweaking eight definitions in our definitions section, specifically the expansion, enlargement, or intensification, improvement, replacement, reconstruction, or restoration, and that's, I should make that clear, that that's one term, replacement, reconstruction, or restoration, interim use, non-conforming buildings and structures, non-conforming lot, non-conforming use, and then simply just changing the title of use permitted to permitted use to be in line with the rest of our phrases. This next section, we are proposing to remove subdivision 1 of section 103.010 and replacing it with general standards of applicability. This clarifies the authority for nonconformities to continue, clarifies that there is a burden on the property owner to establish the legality of their nonconforming use, structure, or lot, and then also goes over safety regulations. Subdivision 2 specifically focuses on nonconforming uses and identifies how the city will handle ordinary repairs and maintenance, structural alterations, expansion of use, specifically that is not permitted, changes to nonconforming uses, discontinuation or abandonment, and damage or destruction to nonconforming uses. Subdivision 3 is specifically looking at nonconforming buildings and structures. The proposed language does add limited protection for recently approved structures, but not yet existing, in addition to clarifying rights granted to existing nonconforming buildings and structures. Staff proposes continuation of an administrative and conditional use permit process that does allow expansion of nonconforming buildings and structures under specific conditions. Subdivision 4 focuses on nonconforming lots. It removes a clause that we have for lot combination in shoreland overlay districts that is believed to be in direct contradiction with state statute. So we are removing that. It covers how the city will handle vacant and redeveloped lots and developed lots and lots within our shoreland overlay district. It also clarifies that lots within the rural residential and urban reserve must have a development right in order to be developed. Subdivision 5 simply would be completely added. This is not, we currently don't have a subdivision 5. And it was focused on exceptions to our nonconformity regulations, specifically, and this is what is allowed per state statute, and it would specifically give the city a little more wiggle room for nonconformities within floodplain areas when we need to avoid increases in flood damages or obstructions, and then nonconforming adult uses if that were to ever pop up in our community. So at this time, the Planning Commission should open the public hearing and take comments, and staff recommends approval of the ordinance amendment, the resolutions approving findings of fact, and then the summary ordinance for publication.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, at this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in our audience that would like to speak? No? All right, Natalie, is there anybody online?
Members of the public joining us by Zoom, please utilize the raise your hand function under the reactions tab or under the participants tab if you'd like to participate in the nonconformities public hearing. At this time, no one is raising their hand, Mr. Chair.
I really thought this was going to be the hot button issue. If it didn't just lull everybody to sleep while reading it, but, or, you know, trying to figure out all the sections and, but, all right. It doesn't look like there's anybody to speak in the public hearing. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that.
Second, anybody?
I'll second it, Wood.
All right, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This public hearing is closed. All right, commission discussion and recommendation. Commissioner Lanterman, would you like to lead off for us, please? Or you could defer.
I really don't have anything to add.
Did you read this?
Okay. All right. Commissioner Brummond.
I don't have anything to add, other than, like, it reads like code, right? So if there was any way to change that, but otherwise, nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Wu?
Why has it not been updated since 2004? Did it just, was never contested, or, it looks like the state had updated several times.
We didn't have a Natalie for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Wu, it was identified, I think, as far back as 2019, as something that we needed to change, and no one had, I don't think anything's really come up with the Shoreland District, and that was like the glaring one. I think there was a couple other things that I was like, we should probably remove that when consulting with the city attorney, but nothing has ever been really contested. But we did want to go ahead and get this updated, so it doesn't come up in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I don't actually have any questions. I mean, it was some pretty heavy reading, but I don't actually have any questions about it.
I do. I must have looked into this way too much.
No, that's okay.
No, that's all right. These are minor things. So I'd like to start on page 6 of the report, section D1. So it says a change in use is deemed to occur when an existing non-conforming use has been terminated and another use has commenced. Any change in use in violation of this zoning ordinance is deemed an abandonment of the previously existing lawful non-conforming use. What if the other use
Is lawful?
is not in violation of the zoning ordinance?
A change of use is deemed to occur when an existing nonconforming use has been terminated and another use has commenced. So basically, even if it is a legal use that they've changed it to, you cannot go back to the nonconforming use. I think the latter is just a clarification that anything in violation of the zoning ordinance is definitely an abandonment of the previously use as well. You can't go back to the nonconforming use. So basically, we're saying,
But, so if it changes in use, again, I don't have quite the legal mind as our other Commissioner Landerman has, but as I read it then, it just says that, one has been terminated and another has commenced. Okay, any change in the use in violation of this ordinance is deemed an abandonment. But if it's not in violation of the zoning ordinance, is a change in use then allowed?
a change in use not in violation of the zoning ordinance is definitely allowed, in fact encouraged, that's what we want to see. What we're saying is you can't go back. Once you've changed the use, you've abandoned it, and you can't go back to it. So basically.
Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have a couple of
I get it.
parcels where they are now non-conforming uses because they're in our commercial district, but they have houses. So if they get to a point where they're not using those houses for residential use anymore, and they're using it for office space, they can't go back to using it for residential. They have to continue using it for office space. If they were to use those houses for an illegal use, they still can't go back to the residential space.
Okay, but to go from residential then to a use in an office assumes then, I'm assuming then, that the office use is permitted under the zoning.
Correct, so offices
Okay.
would be permitted in that situation, but if they were to I'm trying to think of an example, if they were to use it for something in violation of our code, I'm trying to think of a good example here.
Rental, would that be something?
A what?
Would it be multifamily or rental, or would that be a violation?
No, rental wouldn't be in violation of it because it's a residential use. But if let's say, they're using the space in a way that's more industrial than it is for commercial. It's a violation of our zoning ordinance, but just because they then can't say, okay, well, we'll go back to using it for a residential use. We're saying absolutely not. You've abandoned that use. You need to use it for a conforming use going forward.
Okay.
Get it.
On the same page, Section E, discontinuation or abandonment. I find this particularly interesting at this point in time because of COVID. And I think that there is one business that I was just wondering, how do you determine the timeline? And I'm speaking relative to the 1050.
Yeah.
So now I see here at the bottom of Section E, the period of such discontinuance caused by government action or uncontrolled events must not be included in calculating the length of the discontinued use of this section. So, say they've been closed they have not opened officially for business, or let's just say 18 months. But 14 of those months, they couldn't. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out there. Who kind of determines what these timelines are and the amount of time and to that number? I mean, to that extent, assuming that the 1050 is still, meeting code, health codes and all this and that. Let's say they open their doors for 2 weeks. Does that then end the discontinuance, but then they close it again? I mean, somebody doing it just so that they don't fall into that 12-month, that 12-month time period where they're not open. Is there a time of period when somebody can open the door, conduct business, and then close it again and restart the clock?
Mr. Chair, theoretically, yes, they could do that if they're really, but I mean, at that point, what are you hanging on to? If you're only operating 2 weeks out of a year?
Well, and they are a conforming use, the 1050, right?
Okay.
It's a
Oh, are
it's a
they?
commercial,
Yeah.
it's own commercial,
Yeah,
so.
but
Well, I would think their parking makes them a non-conforming.
that would be a.
That's a non-conforming lot.
Structure. Yeah, that's a non-conforming, parking would be non-conforming structure. So that's different. This is specifically for, like
A use.
Yeah.
Okay, but my question still goes,
So-
well, who would be determining when this is no longer hey, you no longer can use that as a bar and restaurant because you've been closed for 12 months.
So is it considered abandonment?
Now, I understand in here it says that legality falls on the burden of the owner. So the owner would have to come and argue that point to the city, but they'd have to determine what those dates are, and then it would be up to the city council, I assume. They would be the governing body to make that determination.
Yeah, we'd do findings of facts, we'd investigate, and then if they, came up and said, well, here, I have receipts showing I had business these days, that'd be under consideration.
Okay.
And it'd be the city to present the findings of fact to move forward with that, and then for the applicant, or for the property owner to dispute that.
Okay, under section F, and this would be, both in 1 and 2. Specifically, it says, if damage or destroyed to an extent that is greater in number 2 or less than or equal to 50% in item 1, which is determined based upon market value at the time. Now, in the old language, it said that value was determined by the building inspector. Now, when I see the term market value, and I think of a building inspector, I'm thinking two very distinct values. A building inspector can certainly look at what something might cost, but as we all know, cost doesn't always equal market value. So my question is, in the old verbiage, it gave responsibility for determining value to a city official. The way this is rewritten, it doesn't give that responsibility to anybody specifically. What is our guiding principle then on this? And it shows up, in other places within this report. There's another section, I think it comes under land or something. Neither here nor there, but it would be on page 10. So it'd be under non-conforming businesses or buildings and structures. And page 10, it'd be section F, damage or destruction of that. And again, we have a 50% over under as to how long you have to start replacing it. But what?
We use a licensed appraiser.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't have one on staff, so that's why.
Okay, but here's now, we get back to who's responsible. So it used to be the city's responsibility to determine market value because it was a city inspector. Now the language says that legality falls upon the owner. So is it the owner's responsibility then to go pay for an independent appraisal to determine the loss in value to a damaged structure, which could be expensive? So who's going to be responsible for that cost?
Mr. Chair, the way the ordinance reads, it would be the burden is on the property owner to show the legality of the nonconformity. So I would say that would fall on them. We simply don't have an appraiser on staff to refer to, and our building code official is not going to be able to identify a value.
Well, again, anytime I see the word market value, the last person I want placing market value on anything is a building code guy.
Right.
I mean, they're not appraisers.
Exactly.
No, they're not.
They can look at a building and maybe estimate costs.
Yeah.
But if we're specifically dealing with market value as to whether or not you can or cannot continue with a non-conforming use or a non-conforming building, there could be a lot of money at stake there. We could be talking about an entire business and their livelihood. And I just think that the term 50% of its market value should probably be determined And if I'm the owner of that building, I would want a value to be determined in my best interest instead of something, and so it might require a different type of appraiser. But again, if the burden is on me, then I would want control of that, and I wouldn't want a city inspector. And it's not calling for one here, I understand that in its language, but,
Yeah.
okay. And last, I had on page 9, I'm kind of curious, under section D. So, expansion of legal non-conforming buildings and structures. And there's basically two different avenues. And I found this interesting because I've always been under the impression that if you are in a non-conforming building, you know, we look at some of the public institutions here and, you know, somebody'd say, well, I don't know why they don't, you know, why can't they make their bathrooms ADA? Well, if they do that, well, then they have to have everything become ADA. And that the cost of those things, then it would require they have to pave their parking lot, and they have to do this and do that, and it was just too expensive, and that's why people don't improve their buildings. Now, this here says that they could expand. And I find that interesting. There's the administrative approval and then the conditional use permit. And under administrative, building expansion will have no external negative impacts upon adjacent properties or public rights of way. So can you maybe just flush out for me what external negative impacts upon adjacent properties would be? Are we talking about noise, light, traffic, things like that?
Mr. Chair, correct, I would say any of that would qualify, possibly drainage, if there are some drainage concerns with an additional building pad. I also kind of read it to mean we don't want something that, so it's non-conforming because it doesn't meet the front setback. So they could theoretically, we're fine with them expanding to the rear setback, but we wouldn't want anything that is going to become non-conforming further. So I think it's just, that's more of the issue, I think. And then we have the negative externalities. So if it's something that would be, have a lot of light, I would say that is a perfect example. I'm trying to think what else would be a negative. I think the other issue would be drainage. That's the one that just comes up the most. So if it
Okay.
would cause an issue with drainage, if there's some field tile or something that's just not going to be able to support more of a building or impervious surface, then that would be something we would have to consider.
Okay. In general, just because I just want to, you know, next time I'm sitting at the bar talking about expansions of non-conforming uses or something, I just want to make sure I understand the general theme. So if a building right now is considered to be non-conforming because of, say, a setback, the building could, but let's assume they're too close to the road, but they have a lot of space in the back or on the side. They could be expanded under one of the administrative approval or a conditional use permit, whatever is most applicable, as long as that expansion is towards an area where they can still meet the setbacks and the architectural standards. Would that be correct?
Mr. Chair, that is 100% correct. It has to be, the expansion that we're talking about has to comply with all applicable standards. Yes. We're saying that there might be some kind of a technicality where the building or the structure is non-conforming, and we're not saying it can't be expanded. We're saying it can't become any more non-conforming than it is today. So.
Okay. Because a lot of this stuff leading up to this just says, you can't expand it for greater occupancy, you can't, you know, there's just nothing you can do with this. You can fix the light bulbs, but you can't expand it. And then all of a sudden you get to this one section, and it says, all of a sudden it's like, well, lo and behold, I guess you can expand these under certain circumstances.
Mr. Chair, correct. Staff discussed this, and we felt that buildings and structures should have some way forward, because it's not necessarily that we don't want to see those. If it's a business, that's a use that we want to see. We don't necessarily want to see that go away because of a technicality with their parking, if they can expand within code.
And the building official can say if something's a technical infeasibility, and it's existing, like I've done upgrades for accessible bathrooms where I couldn't meet all the requirements in the existing building, and they've still let me do it because it was an improvement, but it wasn't increasing the non-conformity of the general building.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so we have, like I said, man, I've read the word non-conforming so many times, it's like, all right, we have an ordinance, pass right over it. All right, amending the text of sections 1020 and 1030. And then we have another resolution for findings of fact. Is that? And no, and then we have an ordinance amending the text. So we have three ordinances, right?
Mr. Chair, correct, there's I think it's the ordinance amending the text, findings of fact resolution, and then the ordinance for summary publication.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's for publication. Oh, so the only difference is it's not read.
Correct, it's just a quick summary to post in the newspaper to minimize
Okay,
cost.
okay. All right, do we have any changes that we've suggested to the city council? All right, we'll just take then, if that's all right with the rest of the commission, we'll just take a vote to approve or recommend approval of the amending of the ordinances to the city council, all at one shot. Do I have a motion to recommend approval?
I'll make a motion.
Very good. All right. This is your last meeting, you can second
I'll
it.
second it.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. And it is recommended for approval. Thank you, everybody. All right. All right, we are on item number 8, reports and information, planning project update. Does anybody have any questions or comments for staff on the update? Garage 2 is up for hearing with the city council on next Thursday?
Yep.
Next Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. And Bechtold Farms is on November 22nd. Would that still be relatively accurate?
Yep, Bechtold Farm would be on November 22nd, Monday, November 22nd.
And the assembly uses zoning ordinance.
Mr. Chair, that is coming back to you guys for one last public hearing to hash out the performance standards language. And that is December 2nd, I believe, and then it will go to council December 23rd, ideally to be finalized before 2022.
Okay, so it's scheduled to be back before the planning commission on December 2nd, and is that a public hearing?
It is a public hearing one last time, yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to 8B, City Council Report. Counselor Nichols, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's good
Good.
to have, see the other side of the table for once. Welcome, Corinne. Thank you for joining Planning Commission. Pleasure to have all of you here, of course. In terms of updates for the last month, October was relatively eventful. We had a extensive discussion with Lennar about their Tavera development and the additional piles of dirt that they erected that the council debated with Lennar for about an hour on. So that was an issue that still remains to be resolved. We're looking forward to seeing what the plan is to deal with that problem at our next meeting. See some questioning looks. If anybody wants to interrupt me anytime, please feel free. We also completed a couple of paving projects, which are, I think, relatively rare in the city to this point, but there was one particularly troublesome stretch that had worn away considerably that we were able to replace, and closed the improvement hearings and assessment hearings over the last couple of meetings. As Natalie mentioned, I think it was Natalie who mentioned it, we did recently approve a trash haulers ordinance as well to deal with standardizing hours as well as levels of service for garbage and recycling services in the city.
Can I stop you
Yeah.
just there before you continue? So, a lot of the residents in my little neck of the woods, you know, all signed up with curbside. You know, all of a sudden it's cheaper, grander, whatever. And I noticed immediately after that, now, of course, we just got our asphalt, we got an overlay. It'd be 2 years ago, this November. And, man, are they dropping oil everywhere. I mean, you can see where they stop on a regular basis to every can. And I called them to file a complaint. I just said, I don't know what it is about your trucks, but, you know, we all know what oil and other petrochemical type-based fluids do to asphalt. And I said, it would be an awful shame. Not only does it look terrible, you know. And they were very nice, and they said, well, here's the process. So we will contact the city of Corcoran, and we will get a hold of the public works folks, and then we'll all go out there on site, and we will evaluate those things and come up with a plan to mitigate and to clean those up. Now, has that been part of any of the contract discussions that you've had? Is curbside, I mean, you don't have discussions with them about regular garbage hauling, right? Isn't the only discussions you have for recycling, correct?
So we awarded a recycling contract that went to Randy's.
Yeah.
As far as garbage hauling, there's a new procedure for licensure that haulers will have to go through with the city before they'll be able to continue to provide service. So at that point, there will be a mechanism that the city could use if there are abuses or problems, like violating the hauling hours and things like that. There will be a chance for Brad or Brad's successor to deal with those haulers with a little bit more than what we might have had in the past. So there's a potential there. I don't know that anything has actually happened in regards to your specific complaint, however.
Well, I can guarantee I haven't seen anybody out there, and, you know, I just sit and watch the grass grow most of the time nowadays, if I'm not golfing, but, I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised that she came back with an answer that said there was a process to get it cleaned up and have it addressed in conjunction with the city. And I was like, okay, you know, I don't know how much that's going to go to maintain your darn trucks, you know, so that you're not constantly leaking oil all over the place. But Brad, you don't know anything as far as being contacted by garbage haulers about?
No, it seems like they were trying to pass the buck pretty well there. So really.
I'm so gullible.
It'd be equipment. I was just looking in the section here approved. We have a section under haulers equipment, but it's really regarding leaking of solid waste, not so much the equipment. So it'd be something we'd probably want to have a conversation, but we would need evidence and a complaint, and it'd be something where maybe we'd have an opportunity, if there was enough of these, where we deny them from getting a license in the future. We'd have to review what was established and maybe beef it up, but that's just maybe.
Well, I'll follow up with them. I just, you know, I just haven't seen anything. I just want to know if you guys have ever heard anything, or if it's part of contract negotiation. I thought it was just, you know, fluid flowing through the truck, but it's still there. I mean, you would think that would be something that dried up or got washed away in the next rainstorm, but it hasn't. And, you know, it's funny because you can see where that truck stops, and it's, you know, this hydraulic arm leaks right here, and this hydraulic arm leaks right there, and they're all parallel with one another, and if you put your garbage can in the same spot, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And, you know, it's, like I said,
And then you get a line.
Exactly. But, okay, well, I just, I appreciate your input, and I'll call them up and.
You might want to complain to the city rather than to the waste hauler as well, if you want to be official.
Was there anything in there about the trucks being enclosed? Because we had an issue with a garbage hauler where we would see all of our garbage along Kane Road, and it was just blowing. First, we thought it was because the wind was blowing, and then we realized that they did not have an enclosed truck, so we ended our service with them because Robert and I were picking it up off Kane Road. I mean, it was terrible.
To Brad's point, there is a provision that they have to ensure that the solid waste stays contained. So if it's blowing out of the truck, that would be a problem that the city would have to address with them.
Okay.
We also discussed capital improvement plans. So there's a pre-order process to purchase lawnmowers and police cars and dump trucks and snow plows and things like that. So we had a lengthy discussion reviewing plans to place pre-orders to get some items on order before prices go up in 2022. We had an extensive discussion on October 28th about water supply planning and specifically about potential locations for water towers and water treatment facilities in the northeastern part of the city. We didn't arrive at firm conclusions there, but I think we had successfully surfaced several issues that staff is working on getting through in the next couple of months. And then at the October 28th meeting, we did review the zoning amendment for assembly uses that you sent back to us, and council approved it rather quickly. So we're looking forward to get your final feedback on the draft language for the appropriate controls for performance standards to include in that updated ordinance. We also discussed the construction hours update, which was also referenced a little bit earlier today, and made the appointment of Corinne to this August commission. So, any specific items you'd like me to address that I didn't touch on? I raised my hand a little earlier to ask a question. Commissioner Lanterman, you've often advocated for a clearer, updated set of code. What were your thoughts on review of the code from today? Was this clear enough, or would you like to see something a little bit different in the future?
Well, ideally, I think it should be clearer. I think it's better than it was. Any improvements, I'm all for, but I think that there's still some ambiguity that should be addressed, but I'm more comfortable with this language and coming into conformance with state statute. And then, but we shouldn't just forget about this for another 20 years. You know, we should, you know, baby steps. So this was a good step. I think we can still improve.
Very good. One of the advantages of having a law professor on the planning commission is we get the opportunity to ask for a second opinion.
Well, yeah, well.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, item 8C, other business, and so we would be remiss if we didn't, I just heard tonight that Commissioner Wu has put in for a resignation from our friendly commission, and it was surprising to me, and but she feels that since we had so many people apply before, that maybe the timing is right to get someone, allow someone else the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Really enjoyed it, but it's been 9 years. I can't believe it, 9 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're an alternate before then, right?
Right, so maybe it's more like 11, I don't know, I don't remember.
And as an alternate, you used to go to those meetings, right?
Oh, yeah,
So did I.
yeah. Remember, I used to sit down
That's all,
there.
that's how long we've been on it. I was an alternate, man. I was darn proud of it. I used to actually go to the meetings. Now we don't even have an alternate
No.
in place anymore. So, well, certainly the city and this commission owe you a debt of gratitude.
It's been a lot, I've enjoyed it and I've learned a lot, and I'll miss it, but I think that it's encouraging that there are people who want to serve, because I know that in past years, we didn't have people joining, and, that was kind of like, wow, people don't want to join, and,
Yeah, it was just a couple of years ago. We went for months without being able to
Right.
fill an
yeah.
open vacancy.
So, and what, you had 6 applicants, was it, Jerry? I mean.
5, well, 6, but
so-
one
someone
dropped out.
right?
Yeah.
One dropped out, one we couldn't get a hold of.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah. And I could come back, if needed. I can go to Parks and Trails, which is a complete mystery to me, so. I'd like to
Well,
learn about
you can always read the packet and
Oh, I will.
join the public hearing and stand up and give your viewpoint, just like you've always been
Mhm.
good at doing. So
Yeah.
we would strongly encourage you to come back
Yeah,
anytime.
love to.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
thanks again, and I suppose to our mayor and to Councilor Nichols, we'll have go through another process for finding a replacement. I don't know what that means with the remaining applicants that we just reviewed, but maybe there's maybe this will be a quick and simple process, so. Anytime you guys want to talk, let me know. Okay. Any other business?
Mr. Chair, if I may, it's my last planning
Oh.
commission meeting, so I just
That's
wanted to say
right.
thank you to
Yes.
everybody for my education over the past 8.5 years. I know lately I have not been here, thanks to Natalie, which has been really important for other things to focus on, but this has been a lot of fun, and, talk about full circle, when I first got here, we were talking about our new water system and our ordinance to establish that, and so potentially a town center might happen someday, and here in my last meeting, the town center starts, so it's been
Yeah,
a really,
it's great.
really fun ride.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you taking a break before starting your new position?
I'm taking a week off.
Oh, just a week.
I was on that committee that interviewed, the candidates, which was very interesting. And while I fully supported, your appointment to the position, I thought, he's so young. He's just so young. And I thought, but we don't really have a lot going on right now. This might be a good thing for, someone to cut their teeth. And I tell you, you've brought us from, clearly an entirely rural existence into one with, now we got suburban neighborhoods and whatnot. So you've grown, we've all grown, but your leadership and your organizational skills and everything been incalculably valuable to us as a commission, and so we do definitely thank you, and I'm sorry for the oversight.
No, it's emailed about, so I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, we're having a big surprise happy hour for you after tonight.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, any other business? All right, let's go to our last item, Commissioner Liaison calendar. So Commissioner Brummond, this is, in case you're unaware, so as Councilor Jeremy Nichols is here, he's our liaison with the City Council. We also put somebody from the Planning Commission at every City Council meeting, so we rotate out. And as you can see from that, you have been scheduled for January 13th to attend the meeting. You'll be receiving a packet of that night's information. So to the extent that you have any, you're there to help answer any questions that they may have about our meetings and the items that are on their agenda. So, anyway, if there are any conflicts in this, we've never had a problem in, hey, can you cover me this day, and I'll,
Yeah, we just
rotate,
Okay.
switch out. So, yeah, you're scheduled for January 13th. I'm up for the 10th. When is that?
Wednesday.
Next week.
Next Wednesday? Okay. And then Commissioner Lanterman on the 22nd. Is it the 22nd, that close to Thanksgiving?
Yep, Monday.
Monday.
That's a Monday? Lose so track of time. And then Commissioner Scholak, and I hope everything goes well with Jim for the issues he's dealing with. But, so, too far away to tell whether or not we may need to help cover that time slot. So, if nobody has any changes, well, I suppose we need to pick somebody for December 23rd. Nobody wants December 23rd.
The new person gets the.
I was like, well,
That's not very
Oh,
nice.
the new person coming?
person.
The new person.
It can be done virtually too.
Yes,
So
that's true.
it doesn't feel quite fair. At least I'd have like a little more, familiarity than the new person, but, so.
Well, that's still over a month away, and we'll be meeting here again in a month. So why don't we tackle that issue at that point? But, yeah, one of us will need to cover that day, so. All right, any other items, discussion? If not, I'll have a motion to close this meeting.
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of closing the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
It's good.